wanted to keep talking about this conversation we need to be having about menopause and why I'm so riled up about it. Oprah just did a big talk on menopause with some experts that are amazing women and amazing, and the whole thing is amazing. But here's the problem. Everyone is talking about how many women are now in menopause. It's something like 1 billion women around the world are either entering or in menopause. And how we have to advocate for ourselves and be the CEO of our own lives and of our health care. Maria Shriver said, you must fight for your rights. It's a revolution. We don't have to suffer in silence, etc., etc. And that's all great. It's all great. But it's also not. We should not have to fight for our rights. We should not have to be the CEO of our health. We should not have to suffer at all. So now we're not suffering in silence. We're suffering out loud, loud and proud. Great. But we're still suffering. If this would never happen to a man. If there was a biologic loss of the hormones that were keeping your brain, heart, bones, muscles, and everything high functioning in men, you would be getting a standard of care, boom, replacement, boom, care, boom, medicine, boom, covered by insurance. And not only do we have to learn this shit by ourselves, again, I've spent the past 3 years studying this and researching this hours every single day because my body has changed so much in the last couple years, and I started at optimal health, doing all the things. So no, I don't want to make this a part-time job. I have, but women don't have the time or energy to make their health a part-time job. And if you get something that's covered by insurance, one, it's the minimum just to relieve symptoms. It's not optimizing your health. It's just making the suffering a little bit better. That's covered by insurance. But if you're allergic to peanut oil, there's peanut oil in progesterone pills, bioidentical progesterone. You have to go to a compounding pharmacy, which is expensive. You have to go to a functional medicine doctor to get these alternatives, which is expensive. You know, they were talking about using red light therapy vaginally to help with dryness, expensive, time-consuming, and also all these creams and supplements and fiber and all of this stuff they want you to buy and take and spend time on isn't required if you just get the hormones. So I'm frustrated by this conversation because it's still not helping women not feel like shit. It's still not helping women prevent Alzheimer's and prevent bone loss and etc. And so, again, for me, if you didn't see my earlier video, my biggest symptom was severe changes in mental health. Like dark depression that I've never experienced in my entire life. I'm just now able to talk about it because I've been fully out of it for probably 9 months. And it was years, 2 years of just absolute suffering. Because my brain was freaking out without estrogen. Now, in theory, once the up, down of my levels, that transition and erratic craziness goes away, and I just have this constant low level of estrogen, which is post-menopause. I'm not in menopause yet. Then in theory, some of that erratic mood swings goes away, but then my brain is just learning to live without the estrogen that it needs to make neurotransmitters and all these other things. No. And so you may be perplexed by this, because my sort of whole stance in my work is, let's treat our bodies the way that they are meant to be treated, naturally. What does an innate human body need? Well, here's where this is different. We have never lived this long in history. And not only have we not, like as a society, some people have, but as a whole, people are living way longer due to modern medicine, and we're not dying of disease and infections, is what I'm trying to say. So great if you're like a Buddhist sitting on a mountain in a robe, and your bones are getting, and muscles are depleted, your brain functioning is depleted, you're fine, right? You can still be a heartfelt human sitting on a mountain pondering the world. But that is not the society we live in. That is not the expectation of women today. Women today are running businesses and having careers into their 70s, 80s, 90s. They're taking care of children that they've had in their 40s sometimes. They're taking care of their elderly parents. They're often caring for special needs children and parents. Their parents are living so long and in such a dysfunctional state. We have expectations on us to look and perform a certain way. Now, we can go back to basics and be like, that's all wrong. We shouldn't have such high expectations. Screw looking young and being thin and being fit and making lots of money and dressing nice and taking care of everyone and having a nice house and getting the kids to school, blah, 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 blah. We can fight against that too, but the reality is this is modern day life. And if you don't want to be a mess into your 70s and 80s and have Alzheimer's and heart disease and lose bone function, you need hormones. You just need them. And if we live to be 120, say 50 years from now, everyone's living into the hundreds, and say we lose production of a vital hormone like insulin or cortisol, you bet your ass we're going to give it to people to take. So why the hell aren't we giving them bioidentical hormones? And it's because 20 years ago, there was a study using chemical hormones, not bioidentical hormones, that showed that there was a risk of cancer, and they shut the whole study down. Now we know that that study was done poorly. The conclusions were wrong. There was about a 0.1% increased risk of cancer. I mean, just ridiculous. And everybody freaked out, and they shut the whole thing down, and women stopped taking hormones, and now women are suffering. They have brain fog. They have memory loss. They have osteoporosis. They're dying from falling because their bones and muscles are so weak. It's not okay. And again, if this were happening to men, it would not be a problem. And I'm so tired of women getting the short end of the stick, of having to be the CEO of their own medical care. It's ridiculous. I've literally taken this on as my job, and I give this information to my clients and help guide them through this. But women don't have time for this. Nobody has time for this. And it's not okay. And then on top of it, the information that is out there, the majority of the doctors, now keep in mind 3% of physicians, research has done a survey, 3% of doctors claim to have any knowledge about menopause. So the chances that you're going to a physician that has taken it upon themselves to do the education outside of medical school in their career, slim. Second, the ones that are doing it are getting the basic standard. Take a 0.05 estrogen patch and 100 milligrams of oral progesterone and call it a day. By the way, if you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Progesterone does many, many things in the body, not just protect your womb. That is, again, based on research that has been done on reproductive health, because that is kind of all the research that's been done on women. The percentage of money and time and effort and research done on women is itty bitty. So we haven't known what progesterone does other than protect the uterus. But that's all they're doing here, right? That's all. It's sort of like when they say exercise 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's not what's actually optimal for you. That's the basics to prevent death, right? That is what public health is. I have a master's degree in public health, and one of it's a great thing to prevent to protect the health of the public, but it's an awful thing also, because it's like, what's the minimum we can ask of people to prevent catastrophe? And it doesn't mean that's what's best for you, right? It's like counting ketchup as a vegetable is just ridiculous. But that's what we do in the public health, so the people can feel good about eating vegetables. And what I want you to know is that you deserve so much more than these low standard basic minimum. I don't just want you to get rid of your hot flashes and have a better night's sleep. I want your bones to be protected. I want your heart to be protected. I want your immune system to be protected. I want your brain to be protected. That is what we're talking about here. And name one woman you know over 70 years old that doesn't have one of those issues. But all we're told is, oh, it's just aging. So how come there's so many men over 70 that don't have osteoporosis and Alzheimer's and bone loss and muscle loss? I mean, it's hormones. So I love that Oprah is doing this. I love that she's having the conversation, but it's not enough. It's not just, let's talk about this and come out from being embarrassed about menopause. That is old news. That is something many generations before us should have been dealing with. Not being embarrassed that you're having a hot flash. Screw that. How are we going to prevent hot flashes? One of the women in the audience was like, I'm having a hot flash right now. Ha ha. She shouldn't be having hot flashes. That means that her brain is unprotected. Her brain is, the loss of hormones in her brain is causing her temperature to be dysregulated. I'm not okay with that. And people's lives and the quality of their lives are really declining. And again, I'll say, so many people say, well, my mother went through menopause without anything. Sure. Was she running a company? Was she taking care of her parents? Was she fit and productive and healthy into her 80s? If not, you might want to think about doing something differently, because I don't want to curl up and sit in a rocking chair when I'm 65 years old. I want to be running around productive and well into my 80s, 90s, hundreds if possible. And this is only just part of the conversation. My next video, I'm trying to keep these short, it's hard. In my next video, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about what hormones am I taking, because I'm taking them, and lots of them. But I'm also going to talk about how our health and our lifestyle is making the need for hormones even worse. So because we're so unhealthy as a society now, and 80% of Americans are overweight and 90% have metabolic dysfunction, which has a huge impact on your hormones and how you handle menopause. I've never had a hot flash because I'm metabolically so fit, is one of the reasons, not all. But I want to talk about how hormones are not a magic bullet. If you are not optimized in terms of nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, if your lifestyle is not creating a foundation to then add the hormones to, it could be a real problem. I mean, some people take hormones and they're like, I feel awful, I'm gaining weight, I'm totally bloated. And that has a big part of something to do with it, so I want to talk about that also. But hormones are not a magic bullet. If they were, every 35-year-old woman would be fit and healthy, and let me tell you, they're not. 2 out of 5 children are overweight now. Insulin resistance is rampant. Type 2 diabetes, which used to be an adult-only disease, is now in children, in grade school children, and I guarantee you we're going to see a kid have a heart attack or a stroke at some point in our lifetime. So the basics have to be covered. And so I'm going to talk about hormones, and I'm going to talk about the basics in my next video. Please, if you have questions, I'm trying to figure this out with you at the same time. I have thousands of hours of research into this at this point. I am not an expert, but I know more than most. So let's help each other and talk about this. And please keep asking questions, because I want to help if I can.